Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tosh Customs and I'm very excited to bring this review today. This is my custom figure called BLK Citizen. This was a commission piece and the customer had this idea for this original character that he brought to me, and he said this guy, his name is BLK Citizen. He is a vigilante and he lives in a world where everyone needs to use synthetic blood. The air is too toxic, and so everyone needs to inject themselves to refresh their bloodstream and keep themselves alive. And this synthetic blood, it's called neon, and it's monopolized by these companies, and so everyone has to essentially pay to stay alive. And I was like, this is such a cool idea. I want to make this character. But in reality, we didn't have concept art as an original character. It's a lot of back and forth between, myself and the customer to arrive at sort of, the grand vision of it all. And so we traded ideas back and forth, and he sent me some inspirations for him that came out of like Gray Fox from Metal Gear Solid, as well as some different various anime inspirations as well. And so I drew up some concept art and we talked a little bit more. And ultimately, he said, like, you understand the design direction, the design cues I'm going for. Just make this character. And it was really cool. He gave me a lot of creative freedom, and I still consulted with him a lot. But this is what we finally came up with. This is a cyberpunk dystopian world, and so working really hard to represent someone who is a vigilante, and so his suit is going to be just a little bit more gritty. It won't be as sleek and as futuristic, and really trying to uh, make this character represent the world that he lives in. So you guys obviously have taken a look at him already. I'll do a little spin around right quick, and then we will dive into the ins and outs of the character. So starting off with accessories, he's wearing a lot of them already. We have an SMG here, and I'll sort of talk about this and take them off the character. So I'll set this to the side. So first off, we have the SMG here. This is from the Blade figure, and we're actually on I think it's the PX exclusive Blade. This SMG, I dry brushed it in black and then hit it with some chrome silver just to get some weathering in there. And then this top cover, as you can see, it sort of comes off from this top rail, this top mounted rail here. And it looks like there's a sculpted cover, because you can see that this back part here, as well as the grip, as well as the foregrip, all of it is kind of its own lower internal piece, and then the stuff up here looks like it's almost like mounted or fitted above. And so I wanted to accentuate that more, and so I painted it in this nice olive drab green, as you can see, just to create a little bit of contrast and make it almost feel like it's some sort of military grade. Maybe it's been smuggled off some company or some military base in the future. So he's got his SMG there. If you guys are familiar with the Blade figures, you know that the bullets are actually painted in a bright silver, because it's Blade. He's hunting vampires and he needs those silver bullets. But for our use, I painted them back a nice crisp gold, because we're not fighting vampires, we're fighting corpos. So there you go. That's the SMG right there. This is a 3D printed rifle I got from, I think it was a Thanatos Arsenal or something like that. There's a lot of 3D printing guys on Etsy. I'm sorry if I scuffed up your name, dude. I apologize for that. But I did buy this from him. It's this really cool AR-15 style rifle. And so I wanted to play off the idea that this was 3D printed. So I actually just black washed a lot of the grip, the stock, and the main body of the gun, because I said, hey, in the future, 3D printing is going to be something that's a little bit more easily to manufacture, especially like 3D printing metal, laser printing metal, which is something we see already, but it's just not too ultra common. So I just black washed it, and then I left it in that same printed gray color. And then for the mag, for the internal of the stock, as well as the peripherals like the suppressor, the laser sight, and the holographic scope, painted that in black, and then dry brushed it with a little bit of black gray, and then hit it with a little bit of chrome silver on top. Obviously, we don't miss the details. You can see the laser right there is painted in red, as well as the scope right there is picked out in some red as well. So there we go. That's the rifle, looking real nice and pretty. Something I forgot to mention about the SMG in terms of details is I actually also hit the little viewfinders up there and right there in some red as well. If you've seen my other customs, you know that's something I do for all my different firearms, but if it's your first time here, wanted to point that out as well. So the viewfinders right there are both picked out in red. I wanted to give him swords. Like I said, we were inspired a bit by Gray Fox from Metal Gear Solid. So I did want him to be able to carry a sword and just carry melee weapons, but I didn't want them fixed to his person, and I didn't want him to feel too much like a ninja. I've done a lot of cyber ninjas, shinobi, yakuza inspired type cyberpunk stuff in the past, and I wanted this guy to feel different. I didn't want him to feel like he was tied to the ninja aesthetic. And so we'll talk about that more when we get into the character design. But what I did give him is I gave him these two melee weapons. One is Blade's sword here. The sword has remained largely the same, but the sheath has been completely repainted. So I repainted both sheaths in a matte black and then dry brushed this flat gunmetal. And so what I did was I mixed chrome silver with matte black. And so you get that gunmetal color, but you can see it's not as reflective anymore. And I think that just really, really looks great for the overall design. And then I have little bits of gold highlights throughout the figure, throughout the character. And so just a little gold dot right there on the tip of the sheath. And then what I did was I glued at all these little points there because I wanted to keep the hollow spaces still visible between the two sheets. So I actually just put dots of glue in between there. And then I also sculpted a little connector piece here that helps keep the two sheets together. So I would, note for the customer, I would proceed just with a little bit of caution. Don't rough it up. It's very easy to attach to the back of the figure. I have this whole fitted peg that fits into the belt. So you shouldn't have much of an issue attaching this. But yeah, these do have a chance to separate maybe. As far as both swords go, like I said, they're unchanged. You have Blade's sword here, looking great as ever. And then we have this other sword, which is from Death Adder. So just slides out right there. If you're familiar with the Death Adder sword, you know it gets a little bit sticky inside the sheath. Not because of the paint or anything. The sheath is just a very tight fit. So just slide it in right from the bottom edge there, and it will fit in really nicely. But something I like is how this grip right here and the bottom of the blade there line up really nicely. I think that's super cool. How I was able to, and this was done purposefully, but I liked measuring it so that it looks like it lines up and it's almost like crafted for these two to sit together. So that was a fun little piece. Other weapons or other accessories that BLK Citizen has. I took the Death Adder magazine storage. So he's got a spare SMG mag and a spare pistol mag. And like I said before, the rounds painted in gold. And then we will come to the pistol over here. Let me slide it out of the holster. Pistol here has also been dry brushed in matte black. If you're familiar with the original, it's cast in this gunmetal gray silver, and then it has this silver wash over it, which is cool, but it feels very light, and it does feel a little bit plasticky. So hitting it with that black dry brush really helps bring the colors down a little bit. I left some of that silver in there just because it helps pop out the details, and I like that negative contrast. And down here, the flashlight or the laser has been painted red. Once again, the bullets in the removable mag picked out in gold, as you can see. And other than that, also the viewfinders, once again in red. You can see a little bit of red right up there, and then the two red back here on these Trigicon fixed sights in the back. So there we go. If you don't know, the slide also has a reciprocating function, just like so. So fun little thing. I am including 2 Mezco gun effects with this. I'm including the classic pistol effect, which actually, looking at this now, I should paint that gold. Noted for later before I ship it. And then also including this larger blast. This is technically meant for the blade shotgun, but I actually think it's super, super fun to have on the SMG because it really shows how much power this SMG is outputting. Like, it's Cyberpunk. These guys have to have, much more powerful rounds to fight through the armor and everything, and all the little internal mods that people have. Once we see the character, he's got a lot of mods on him, and augments. So just cool to have a really, really powerful SMG, and I like that a lot. So including that larger blast as well. Last but not least, let's talk about hands and alternative heads. So the first head we have, we wanted to go with a very sort of clean helmet, and this is definitely inspired by Metal Gear Solid, not directly in terms of like construction and reference, but if you think about like the single eye and the sleeker helmet, definitely screams a little bit of gray fox in there. I sculpted all of this and printed it myself, and I wanted to make it feel alien, but also very, very plausible, if that makes sense, and feasible in a futuristic world. So we have this really cool green to purple color shifter. It almost feels like the shell of a beetle or something, maybe out of Destiny, where you have some of those like portal and energy helmets, where you have this, layer of energy flowing through the front. And I think that looks really, really nice. And then coming to the sides of the helmet here, very, very industrial. Got a lot of little rivets and lines out here. I liked painting this sort of like cheekbone-esque piece in gold just because it helps bring some pop to the whole helmet. Originally, I wasn't going to have it in gold, and as I thought about it more, I was like, he needs just some little highlights of gold to really bring out those details. As you can see, once again, everything is painted in sort of like this matte gunmetal paint where it's a little bit shiny, because I mixed it, but it's not as bright as it could be. And then having some white lights to really just cut through all these darker colors. Even this green with the purple, it's shiny and it's colorful, but ultimately, it sits on a darker tone just like this gunmetal does. And so we have these little bits of gold and these white lights on the helmet to really create that contrast that we need. So there we go. That's the helmet right there. Moving on to the quote-unquote unmasked head. The idea that the customer had was that even if his helmet is taken off, he has like a backup plan. He has a contingency here. So let me try to lighten up these lights so we can really see some of that detail. The camera is having a little bit of trouble with the lighting right now, picking that up, but we'll do what we can. Let me sort of shift some of my lights here to help maybe focus that a little bit more. There we go. You can see it a bit better now. So his idea was this guy will have, if his mask ever gets pulled off, if it ever gets disconnected, he has this almost like organic or like semi-organic goo that can cover his face. He likened it to Rorschach and like The Question from DC, where they almost have like this adhesive mask, this semi-fluid mask that they put on or can cover their face. And so I really wanted to represent that. So as you can see, I actually have sculpted it so it looks like the mask is deploying. I didn't want to just go, oh, he's got a goop mask, he's not going to have any facial features, but I actually sculpted it so that it looks like the liquid is running and stretching over his face. And so my idea is that it actually deploys from this housing unit in the back, and then it rushes forward to cover his face. And this is actually version 2 of the sculpt. Originally, the sculpt didn't have all these wave lines, and it printed out, and it just looked like a really blank, meh. It was just smooth and kind of gross. And so I said, okay, I need to come back to the drawing board with this. And so I'm going to sculpt in these wave lines, and it's not coming across on camera very well. And I have all my lighting focused on it, really. I don't know why it's not coming across clear. That's a little better, but this is actually done in a lighter gray, and then all the wave lines are done in black. Yeah, it's just not in hand. The contrast is a bit brighter, but yeah. So it actually feels like the liquid is a little bit more gray, and then you have all these wave lines coming through it that are sitting lower and sitting darker, and it actually feels like ripples. Oh, that angle's really good. Ripples across the surface. So that was really cool. So that was a fun thing to paint. And you might be wondering about what this pink dot is. Well, this pink dot has to do with the neon. So without further ado, let me pop this head on and let's start talking about the actual character. So here we go. We have, I'm sorry, I'm pushing some accessories out of the way here. We have our BLK Citizen in the flesh. A big inspiration for this guy, like I've said, is this sort of vigilante look. And I didn't want him to feel, how should I say this? I didn't want him to feel too military. I didn't want him to feel too or too street punk. I've made a couple more like street punk-esque designs, and the issue with those is they feel just a little too the street punk just feels a little too punk and rebel, and I didn't want to go into this field of bright colors and graffiti and loud music. I wanted him to feel sleek. I wanted him to feel stoic and really just set on his course. And so I decided I want to create a character that sits more with this industrial metal look. You know, it can look a little bit handcrafted. I can add weathering. It can look maybe like hand forged or, futuristically like metal 3D printed. But he's not going to be sleek and elegant, but he's not going to be this loud, young, he's jaded. He sees the world as it is, and he's trying to make a difference here. So with that, we have this G.I. Joe Zartan armor that I took off G.I. Joe Zartan. And if you're familiar with the figure, he's got these big old shoulder plates. I cut those off right at like the upper strap, and I've replaced them with these 3D printed Robert Pattinson shoulder pads. And I actually originally was going to have spikes on them. And the customer actually said, hey, let's not go with spikes. And honestly, after having it painted, I think that's a really good idea. I think the spikes would have maybe leaned a little too punk. And I'm glad that we all decided to go with this. And I really, really like this look because it makes him feel like a vigilante football player. You got all these nice rivets, all this really nice dark metal and light metal contrasting each other. Really just very happy with how it turned out. Something that I did do when I was painting, I've been employing a lot of that matte black, but as I always talk about, I was thinking about layers. And so for instance, for like these shoulder pads, we have this, this sort of like this mesh or this carbon fiber underneath. But I was painting all of this with the gunmetal, with that matte gunmetal, and then having some silver, some really bright chrome silver dry brush over the top, as well as all these little gold, bolts on the surface. And so I said, I'm going to paint this in a glossy black, and this glossy black is going to undertone the shoulder pad while we have this matte black on the actual arm itself. And so between the two, we have this high contrast of the metal, high contrast of the gloss, high contrast of the matte underneath. And so all of them feel really cohesive there. And I think that turned out really well. And so sort of managing my colors and managing their finishes so that everything has a chance to pop. Likewise, with the chest here, you can see we have a little bit of some dry silver highlights up at the top of these pads, whereas the stuff down here is definitely a little bit darker. You can see some brighter silver edges up on the top of these ab plates. The ab plates are from the Mezco Deathstroke, and I've been sitting on these for a while because I knew I was going to need ab plates or something, and this character just fits perfectly. We've got gashes here in the abs, we've got gashes here up on the arm, up on the actual chest piece, so it works perfectly. And then something I decided to do is I wanted to follow with that olive drab green from the SMG. And so we have these straps over here in this olive drab, as well as what comes back here, because if you look at it, all of this up on the shoulders to the back, this is all one layer. Whereas if you look at the front here, this, these rivets up here flow to the green up here. And you can actually see right there in the corner that they actually look a little bit more connected. So it makes sense that this would be black up here, but this back here is a significantly lower layer. And so this is going to be green. Likewise, talking about a lower layer under the arms and under this, sort of like back this strap running around the back, we have some more green. So there's definitely some sort of like fabric piece, maybe like some thick fabric piece that's under all of this metal, and then the metal is bolted over, all this padding is bolted over the top of it. Once again, continuing with those gold highlights, we got some gold lining running through the chest here. And I was really inspired by Metal Gear Revengeance Raiden when I was doing this. If you're familiar with that character, he's got like this gold venting on his chest. And I didn't want to paint a bunch, hand paint in a bunch of vents because that would have overcomplicated the character. But instead, just having these gold lines sort of running through the core here just shows a little bit of elegance, maybe even like a little bit of glow coming from under the surface. Who knows? You can believe it how you want to, but it definitely brings some cohesiveness to the design as well as it adds a pop. If it was just this black, black gunmetal silver, it's sort of like a monochrome tier list: black, gunmetal, silver. Gold is on a completely separate spectrum where it adds a pop of color to it. So you've got some green here, you've got some gold that adds some more life to the suit. Coming down to the belt, this is a Sovereign Knight. This is a Sovereign Knight belt right here. All matte black and then dry brushed in some gunmetal, highlighted with some chrome silver, as well as some parts of the belt picked out in some gold. Coming down to the leg, this has all been painted in matte black, and this is just the standard blade holster that comes on the PX exclusive, but I've painted it matte black and then added some little silver clips. So there you go, pretty simple stuff. The boots, painted the whole front armor piece in matte black and then dry brushed it with some of that matte gunmetal, and then came over with just a little bit of silver dry brushing over the top. And that created just the perfect weather look, and really just had to do that to match the rest of the suit. Made sure everything was cohesive across the board. And then once again, some more gold just in the little buckles on the boot. Everything else didn't need to happen. He's in a cyberpunk city. Probably not a lot of mud going on with everything being concrete and metal out there. So I was like, I don't really need dirt in the boots. I'm just going to leave them weathered and tattered because he's been getting a little banged up. So now let me swap the head out just so you guys can see the alternate look right here real quick. And I really love this helmet. I think it looks super good. Sorry, I need two hands to, there we go. Pop that on the top. So here we go with the alternate helmet. Still looks really, really cool. And an important thing was for the scale. Both heads work, but I needed this one to just be a little bit oversized so that it makes sense that this head can actually fit inside pretty well, as you can see. So there we go with that. So now let's talk about the arms. I feel like the arms are a really big highlight, especially when you're working with the Mezco. Why would you choose to leave the arms exposed? And that's because I wanted to really show them off with some good old sculpt work. I have done an exposed arm look before with a much older Cyberpunk figure. I think we called him the Cyberpunk Cop or something like that. It's been a while. But he had these really bright, like metallic, glossy black, metallic red, glossy black arms. And they looked super, super futuristic. Like definitely some military grade, really sleek, private corporation type technology. And for this, I wanted it to be a lot more subtle. I actually played the recent Cyberpunk DLC, and I was looking at the character designs there. And one thing I was really impressed about was your character, when you do arm upgrades, you can see a cut in their armor. They replace their forearms with tech, but you'll notice that it's just sort of a skin color. It's like the synthetic skin color that gets printed onto your arm. Even though you've replaced it with a fake arm, they could have made it all chrome silver, but they actually instead choose to, paint or put like some kind of synthetic rubber skin over your, new prosthetic augmented arm. So I wanted to go with that idea for BLK Citizen. So I left the shoulders black, and the reason why is I wanted to set the precedent that these were robotic arms. And so you have this matte black that continues to run to the bicep and to the forearm. And so in order to make this guy feel beefy and the fact that he actually has synthetic arms or artificial arms, I decided to upgrade them. So originally, if you're familiar with the Blade body, the shoulders and arms are pretty thin because he's a much more athletic character. I was like, I need to beef this guy out if he's going to have his arms exposed. So these shoulders and these upper arms are actually from the Batman Sovereign Knight as well. And so I popped those off the original figure, popped them into Blade, and then including the elbows. And then it's just forearm and hands that come from the Blade figure. And so that really bulked out the shoulders and really bulked out the bicep upper arms. And then after that, I came through and I sculpted over everything. And I wanted to go with an asymmetrical look so that it was just visually more interesting. So as you can see, we have one very clear pattern on one side and one completely different pattern on the other. And part of that has to do with that each arm has a different function. So the right arm here, I sculpted this gun that can come out of the forearm. And so this gun piece actually comes from Jyn Erso from the Black Series Rogue One figure. So this is the end of her blaster. I chopped off the grip and then sculpted this into the arm. And as you can see here, we have all these little panels that have sort of opened up so that the gun can come out and reveal itself. And then if you look here, I actually did paint the sides of these panels in a matte black. So as you can see how there's like matte black internals to his arms, under the surface is going to continue to stay matte black to actually represent that the arms have folded outwards. So fun little design treat right there. And then obviously this was just washed in black and then dry brushed with some chrome silver. On the left arm here, I was, in a city where people have to inject themselves with neon blood, synthetic blood. How would that work? So I created a little injection port here on his left arm, sculpted all this paneling around it. And then on the inside of his left arm, I decided to give him a meter so that he could track if he was running out of blood or not. So you can see we have a bunch of these little white markers and we have green, red, and orange here just to indicate sort of where he is health-wise. And so I figure as he runs and as he fights, over time this will go down. Probably not very quickly, but over time it will go down. And if he gets injured, it will drain faster. And then he's going to have to find a way to top off again. I imagine he carries some little synthetic vials up in these pouches up here. And then coming back to this port, you can see a nice little bright pink dot in there where he would inject. Like I said before, with the alt head, bright pink little marker up there. So clearly we got some neon running into his brain, some extra vials and tubes. And likewise, we have some bright pink lines running up the back of the neck there. So just, I didn't want to put bright pink everywhere and make him feel a little too funky and a little too bright, but just little tiny hints of how this neon has worked into people's systems and how they need, even a special injection and delivery system so that you can put this synthetic blood into your body. So there we go with that. And then, as I was saying, we have the right arm weaponized. So I was like, hey, his left arm needs a little bit of something. So I've created this nice little elbow spike blade here off his left forearm. And so as he's fighting, he can come down and elbow someone. He can block and maybe like swing an elbow. And you can go cut someone with that. So he just has a little bit more offensive capability besides your normal punches and guns. So yeah, I think that's largely an overview of the character. I do want to gear him up again. And so, like I said before, I fitted this tab. So I just sculpted, I just put in some sculpt into the base of this blade, like this blade holster or sheath holder. I don't know, sheath holder. And so I lined it up so that it actually fits into the Batman belt. And that was a really fun, cool little thing that I was able to do there. So as you can see, if we watch it from the top view here, sorry, the sword fell out. It's loose in the sheath, but it's fine. Sword comes out, and all you have to do is just slide it in right there. And then the sculpted piece just lines up and fits super, super nicely. So as you can see, it doesn't shake out. And so now you have, I need to put the other sword back in now. But now you have his stored swords on him. I think that looks really, really cool. I love him with his dual blades stored up there. Super, super nice. Really great silhouette. Once again, let me put the... I'm not going to be able to do it with the swords on. Pistol back in the holster. I'll make him hold the pistol instead. We'll slide this into his left hand for now. And then actually, speaking of the hands, since we didn't really touch on that, we are using the blade hands, but I decided to paint the backs of the hands with all the, mechanical lines. I matched the skin tone of the arms and of the wrist peg. All of this is actually designed to match the wrist peg, and I think I got a pretty good color match there. And likewise, color matched it to the backs of the hands so that everything looks cohesive. So all of these arms, are made to look skin tone, and then likewise, it runs to the hands as well. So it all looks like this mechanical synthetic skin, to sort of sell the idea that they're like quote unquote real arms, or they look a little bit more real. So there you go. Super, super happy with this figure. It was a pleasure to design. It was a pleasure to collaborate and sort of develop this original character together, especially since it was really just a concept. And creating this little world that he exists in, and designing a character around the lore. I think that's my favorite part, and I've said it before. But being able to ask the questions of where does this character exist? How does he or she interact with the world? And then creating a design that fits within that. You never want to have a character that has things on them and are just cool for the sake of being cool. That it's wasted ideas, it's wasted potential. But instead, creating a character to fit the place they live and fit their place of origin, and really that's how you get a more developed character design, is incorporating all those things, incorporating sort of like these elements of storytelling into the final design so that they feel like they fit the world they belong in. So once again, an absolute pleasure to design this character. I really liked the concept, and so I was just trying to find a way to sort of go really hard in the design. We want elements of being we want sword elements and this sleek ninja elements from Metal Gear Solid. But he's a vigilante, so he's a commoner. He's not rich in that way, and so he's going to have more industrialized armor. His augments aren't going to be as clean or as crisp and futuristic. We have this whole neon blood element, and so how do we incorporate this synthetic blood into the suit design? How does he get this injection of blood? How does he keep track of where he's at? So we have this whole left arm designed as a delivery system. We have the right arm designed to be a secondary, weapon that he hides on himself. Different things like that. So, very, very fun. Very, very happy to bring this to you after a long time. I appreciate all the support on the channel. I've been gaining a lot of followers or subscribers on the channel considering I don't post. So thank you all for the love. Thank you for the continued support, and I will catch you next time. Take care.